Good morning. It's good to see you all. And what a beautiful day it is to sit in this beautiful space that Fugan and Seijin work so hard to maintain for us. So big gasho for making this possible to both of you. As some of you know, I'm native to Massachusetts, although I've lived in New York City for many years. And so I grew up as a kid in the western part of the state. But every summer we would come to Cape Cod. And one thing I came across when I was visiting here several years ago, at one of the beaches, I can't remember which, it's an Upper Cape beach, but it's just you're looking down from the top of a very high dune onto an empty strip of beach, but there's a photograph of what used to be there before, which was an incredible bathing beach, with a big changing area. And the photo was taken probably in 1961, 1962. And, there were all these people, and you can see the parking lot with woody station wagons, if some of you might remember those. And the people, the women with that hair and all of that. And, I could have been in that photo because that beach was one of the beaches that we frequented when I was a kid. There was the stand where I went and got French fries. It was all there, except it wasn't there. It didn't exist anymore. It was all washed away, I think probably by a hurricane. Anyway, some big storm just came along and completely gone. And so, it was an eerie feeling looking down on this pristine, empty beach where, as a 7-year-old, I was part of that whole early 60s scene. And I'm sure all of us get struck with, in one way or another, with how temporary things are. With when we're very young, everything seems very solid, and oppressive even, like, that's one reason we fight for change. And when we get older, we realize, oh, well, we don't have to fight for change. Here, it's going to happen. It is happening. And everything seems flimsy and put together with spit and sealing wax. And, you're grateful if things can just stay together for another precious day. And I think the great spiritual teachers, a lot of them started out with this sense of how temporary and how fragile life was. And it was the source of starting their spiritual quest. Certainly that was true of the founding teacher of Buddhism, Shakyamuni Buddha, who, you're probably familiar with the story. He was a prince whose father didn't want him to know any of the horrors in the world, so he kept him at the palace, and it was a pleasure palace. Everything was great, but when he became a teenager, he got kind of bored. And finally, as a young adult, uh, he snuck out beyond the palace wall. And this was ancient India, and it didn't take him very long to encounter sickness, old age, and death. There it was, right along, right out there in front of his nose as soon as he left the palace. His father had worked so hard to keep it from him, and yet when he freed himself, that's what he encountered. And so eventually he decided that, well, in the face of the reality of sickness, old age, and death, this rich boy's life I've been leading, it's ridiculous. I have to find out why why it's meaningful to be alive at all, when everything just dissolves, when we all get old, deteriorate, get ill, and maybe even worse, the people who we love, the same thing happens to them. The places that we love fall apart. How do we find any peace or stability or meaning in this life that we're living? And so he followed a spiritual path as it existed at that time. And which was mostly asceticism, being, depriving the body of nourishment and just about everything. And the idea was the more you mortify the body, the more the soul isn't oppressed by physicality and can rise and shine through. And he was very good at it, and he had very deep experiences following this path, and he was on track to become a teacher in this tradition himself. But you know what? It didn't set his mind at rest. All these wonderful mystical experiences he had, they were great while they lasted, but like all experiences, like everything else, they faded slowly into the past, and eventually they were memory and learning, but no more than that. How could you find peace in the face of the temporariness of everything? Sickness, old age, and death. And so finally, he threw in the towel. He said, "Yeah, okay, I'm a failure. I don't know how to do this." So he started taking some nourishment, and then he just sat. That's it. He just sat. He says, "I'm not going to get up till I've resolved this." And he just sat. That was it. And then on the morning of the sixth day, he looked up and he saw the morning star Venus. I'm sure all of us have seen it if we're up early enough in the morning. And he said, "How wonderful. All beings and me are enlightened at this moment." So what did he see? Well, he saw the morning star. He saw the same thing you see. And there was still sickness. There was still old age and death. And sickness was still very unpleasant and painful. Old age continued. There was death all around. The star was just a star. Well, he failed. He was one of the most spectacular failures in the history of spiritual practice. And it's thanks to his failure and his compassion in sharing it, that we have this practice today, and we do what he did. We sit. And sometimes if we sit hard and long, we have some amazing experiences. We realize the fundamental ground of reality, which is emptiness. We directly encounter it. It's amazing. And then that was nice. Now what? Those experiences recede into the past. So Shakyamuni was a failure. And thank goodness for that. Another big failure was the founding Japanese teacher of our school, Dogen Zenji, who also got started on his spiritual path by encountering the way things fall apart. His mother died when he was 8, and when he was at her funeral, he saw the incense smoke drifting up into the sky, and he had a natural question: where has my mother gone? Very simple question. And so he, a few years later, he started studying with the Tendai school of Buddhism. And finally, since no one he was studying with could satisfy him or answer his questions, he moved over and started studying with the Zen school at Kenninji. First for a little while with Master Isai, who was one of the first Zen masters in Japan. And then when Isai passed away, he studied with his successor Myozen. And he was a brilliant student. His teacher was a brilliant teacher. And after a while, they both agreed, God, this is kind of a bust. We're not satisfied. I mean, we haven't answered our fundamental questions. And so they risked their lives to sail to China, which, just like sometimes we fantasize about Japan today, the fantasy then was, oh, well, the real deal's in China where it all started, so let's go there. And they went around and weren't too impressed with what they saw. And finally, they found one teacher who really spoke to them, Master Ru Jing. And so Dogen had been studying at this point, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 years. And needless to say, had many great experiences and insights. And he wasn't satisfied. He hadn't laid to rest this question of meaning in the face of the way everything evaporates. And so he studied with Master Ru Jing, and he was sitting up late one night, and apparently, as happens at session, one of the monks was falling asleep, and Master Ru Jing took off his slipper and hit the monk on the shoulder and said, Zen is not about sleeping. Zen is dropping body and mind. And when he heard those words, Dogen finally laid to rest his doubts. And so his primary teaching was to drop body and mind. He went into Master Rujing, bowed and lit incense, and Rujing said, "What have you seen that you light incense?" And Dogen said, "Body and mind have dropped away." And Rujing nodded and said, "The dropped away body and mind." Dogen said, "Don't approve me so easily." "I'm not approving you so easily." "Why do you say you're not approving me so easily?" "Body and mind have dropped away." Dogen then bowed and said, and Rujing said, "Ah, now dropping has been dropped." So this might sound like a big success, but actually it's a big failure, just like Shakyamuni's failure. And what did Dogen have to say about his big experience with Rujing? He said, "I didn't realize anything in Great Song China except that my eyes are horizontal and my nose is vertical." He wasn't joking. Just like when Shakyamuni saw the morning star, that's what he saw. He saw the morning star. So why do we really need to fail? Why do we need to exhaust ourselves? Why do we need to hit ourselves, hit our heads against the wall over and over and over again, trying to realize the truth, looking for the truth, trying to become enlightened, to get great spiritual insight over and over again? Some of us, like Shakyamuni and Dogen, will go to amazing lengths to accomplish that. And over again, although they have some great experiences along the way, they're ultimately unsatisfying. Another teaching of Dogen's when he gives instruction for Zazen is, don't try to become a Buddha. It's the shortest, probably the shortest line in that essay of his, Fuka Zazengi. Don't try to become a Buddha. And it's probably the most critical line. And it's absolutely impossible. Don't try to become a Buddha. Don't try to attain spiritual insight. Don't try to attain anything. Sounds easy. Oh, okay, Dogen, I won't try to become a Buddha. But it's like trying not to think of a pink elephant. Go ahead, don't think of a pink elephant. So we bang our heads against the wall over and over again in practice, trying to find the pink elephant, trying to find the truth, trying to find the way. And then eventually what happens, if we're lucky, is we fail. It's never going to, we just realize, oh, this is never going to happen. What was all this about? We just stop. We can't try not to become a Buddha, but we just realize that's never going to happen. Deep down, from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet, we drop body and mind. What happens when body and mind drop away? What's left when body and mind drop away? Everything. Birds, grass, trees, bees, wind, sunshine, computers. When body and mind drop away, all that really drops away is the feeling that something has to happen. So, as I say, the great thing about banging your head against the wall is it feels so great when you stop. You stop. And unfortunately, this cessation, this great surrender, this giving up, it's like trying to think of not to think of a pink elephant. You can't do it by an effort of will. You just have to keep banging and banging and banging till you're too tired to bang anymore. And then you can say, like Shakyamuni said, oh, I'm enlightened at this moment with all beings. It's all arising in this moment. Nothing extra has to happen. Nothing has to be added. I'm living my life with all beings in this moment. My heart knows how to beat. My brain knows how to spit out thoughts. My knee knows how to ache. Everything is perfect and complete, just as it is. Oh yeah, and Shakyamuni was right. The cause of suffering is trying to grasp at things I like spiritual insight, and push away things I don't like ignorance and horrible political situation. Okay, but at this moment, here it is. Does this moment feel good? Does it feel bad? Is it just kind of boring? Whatever it is, this is it. That's all this moment is. The morning star is the morning star. Your eyes are horizontal and your nose is vertical. And your opinion about that really is just your opinion about that. That's the way it is. This is why what always confused me was when you read about great teachers like Shakyamuni and Dogen and so on, and they studied for so long and had so many deep experiences. Why weren't they satisfied? Well, they hadn't failed yet. They hadn't completely given up. When you completely give up, when you drop body and mind, there doesn't have to be anything more or less than what is right now. How could there be? You just stop. A monk asked Master Longya, how was it when the ancient masters gave up chasing after things and completely settled down? Longya said, it was like a thief slipping into an empty house. And in his commentary on this koan, Sawaki Roshi says, a burglar breaks into an empty house. There's nothing to steal. He doesn't have to run away. No one's chasing him. There's nothing. Understand nothing. And he says, Enlightenment is like that. He says, when a burglar breaks into an empty house, although he might have worked really hard to get in, there's nothing to steal. He doesn't have to escape. No one's after him. The whole thing is a flop, says Ryotan Roshi. The whole thing is a flop. That's why my dearest wish for everyone who engages in spiritual practice is that they might fail at it spectacularly. So spectacularly that the notion that there's anything that needs to be added to the perfection of being at this moment, that just falls away. You stop looking for it. There's nothing to steal, there's nothing to gain. And as they tell us over and over again, there's nothing to attain. But you can't will yourself not to attain something or try to attain something. You have to work really, really hard, like the burglar breaking into the house, until you realize nothing has to happen. There's nothing to steal. No one's after me. Sickness, old age, and death are exactly sickness, old age, and death. That's how it is in this life of nirvana that we're privileged to lead. The difference between samsara and nirvana is simply how deeply have you surrendered.